Hello there. In the previous episode, we explored one of history's greatest mysteries: why dragons appear in civilizations separated by thousands of miles, and whether those similarities are coincidence or echoes of a forgotten past. But today, we investigate an even more controversial question, a theory that many historians reject, yet one that continues to spread across books, documentaries, and the internet. Could Zeus, the mighty ruler of Mount Olympus, actually have been what the Bible calls a Nephilim? At first, the idea sounds impossible. Greek mythology and the Bible belong to different traditions, different cultures, different languages, different worlds. Yet both describe extraordinary beings who stood above ordinary humanity, possessing immense power, influencing kings, and shaping the destiny of civilizations. Coincidence, or something more? To answer that question, we must first understand who Zeus was. According to Greek mythology, Zeus was the king of the Olympian gods. He ruled from Mount Olympus. The sky belonged to him. Thunder obeyed his command. Justice was believed to flow from his authority. Entire cities built magnificent temples in his honor. Sacrifices were offered in his name. To the ancient Greeks, Zeus was not simply powerful. He represented divine order itself. But the Bible introduces another mysterious group, the Nephilim. They appear only briefly in Genesis before the account of the flood. The passage describes them as mighty figures of ancient times, men of renown. For centuries, scholars have debated exactly who they were. Some interpret them as giants, some believe they were powerful warriors or rulers, others interpret the passage symbolically rather than literally. Still others believe they were the offspring of heavenly beings and humans. The debate continues to this day, and because the description is so brief, it has created one of history's greatest mysteries. Supporters of the Zeus hypothesis argue that similarities exist. Both Zeus and the Nephilim are connected with extraordinary power. Both stand above ordinary humanity. Both are associated with ancient heroes and rulers whose deeds seem larger than life. In Greek mythology, many famous heroes were said to descend from Zeus himself. Figures like Heracles and Perseus possessed abilities beyond ordinary men. Likewise, some interpretations of Genesis describe the Nephilim as mighty beings whose reputation spread across the ancient world. For some researchers, this pattern is difficult to ignore, but then the mystery grows even larger. Greece was not alone. Ancient Mesopotamia preserved stories of extraordinary beings. The traditions of Canaan spoke of powerful divine figures. Across parts of Europe, legends emerged describing giants who once walked the earth. Even cultures separated by vast oceans developed stories of beings who stood between heaven and humanity. Why? Did these civilizations invent similar stories independently, or were they preserving fragments of a much older tradition? Another theory points toward cultural exchange. The ancient world was far more connected than many imagine. Merchants crossed seas, empires expanded, travelers carried ideas as well as goods. Stories moved from one civilization to another. As they traveled, names changed, languages changed, characters evolved. Perhaps what one culture called a god, another remembered as a giant, and another transformed into a legendary ancestor. Over hundreds of years, the original story, if there ever was one, could have changed beyond recognition. Yet there is another perspective. Most historians argue that similarities alone do not establish identity. Powerful beings appear in countless mythologies. Storm gods exist in many ancient religions. Heroes with supernatural strength are common across cultures. This does not necessarily mean they represent the same individual. Zeus belongs to a complex Greek mythological system involving the Titans, the Olympians, and countless divine narratives. The Nephilim appear within a very different biblical context and serve a different literary and theological purpose. Comparing the two may overlook the unique meaning each tradition intended to convey. Biblical scholars also disagree among themselves about the identity of the Nephilim. There is no universal interpretation. Some reject the giant theory entirely. Others reject the idea that the passage describes supernatural offspring. The debate remains unresolved. Then there is the psychological explanation. Throughout history, humanity has imagined beings larger than life, figures who embody power, authority, fear, protection. whether called gods, giants, titans, or heroes. These stories may reflect universal patterns of human imagination rather than memories of the same individuals, and yet the mystery refuses to disappear. Why do civilizations separated by geography and language repeatedly describe extraordinary beings standing between heaven and earth? Why do legends of mighty figures appear across continents? Why do so many ancient cultures preserve stories of giants, divine rulers, and supernatural heroes? Are these echoes of shared imagination, evidence of cultural exchange, or fragments of traditions whose original meanings have long been forgotten? At present, there is no historical evidence that Zeus was a Nephilim. The theory remains a modern hypothesis built on perceived similarities rather than established fact. But sometimes the value of a question lies not in proving it, but in exploring what it reveals about humanity's oldest stories, because the deeper we investigate the past, the more we discover that history, mythology, and belief are often intertwined. And perhaps the greatest mysteries are not the answers we find, but the questions that refuse to disappear.